Good morning, everybody. Danny back from Deep South Homestead. Guys, it's so foggy this morning. Oh man, we had all the heavy rain come through, which no severe weather. There wasn't anything severe, just good rain. I think we got 2 inches of rain, which was a blessing to us. The ponds are still, I'm sitting here looking, about 4 foot low. So it put some water back in the pond, but it didn't fill it up, no, by no means. Just good rain, good for the gardens, nothing severe. All the panicking and freaking out about the severe weather didn't happen. God is good. He spares us, and we are so thankful for that. We're thankful that He just gives us the much needed rain and not the bad weather that goes with it. Now, supposedly we've got some really bad weather coming through. I'm not actually shooting this ahead of time because they're saying Monday and Tuesday is supposed to be severe tornadic outbreak down in this area. I'm praying that it don't happen. It was supposed to be yesterday here and it didn't happen. So I'm praying that this time it won't be bad either. It's just good and foggy here this morning because we've got a stationary front over us right now, and it's just sitting here pulling that warm Gulf moisture up, and the coolness from the north is coming down, and when they collide, you get this fog here, I guess. It's something like that's how the weatherman was explaining it anyway. But the crops have all, the cover crops are just gone. The turnips and the mustards and the rutabagas and all, it wiped them out. The cold just wiped them out. Now, whether they'll come back from the root, I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. It's going to have to be warm enough, long enough to see if it actually transpires. Now, the high tunnels are doing really, really good. They have managed to pull out, and we're doing well. And so many people have asked the question or made comments, why in the world why don't y'all heat them things? There's a really good reason, and I'm going to explain that. Right now we have electricity. We have availability to natural gas or propane or whatever you want to call it. And, yes, I could install wood heat in them and all that kind of stuff. But guys, right now, while we have time, Wanda and I are actually trying our best to figure out how to keep things alive in a high tunnel without auxiliary heat of any kind. If we can figure it out now while we still have a decent amount of food and we're not like starving for food, then when the time comes and and the power's cut off, because that day will come, or the gas is cut off, and all that day will come. But if we can figure it out now, while we have these amenities, and we're not doing without, then when that time comes, we will already be ahead of the game. Because you see, you don't wait and say, well, it may never happen. And it may never happen, but I pretty much know that it's going to happen. And why not be prepared? You don't send a man into battle without first training him to the environment he's going to be involved in. Now, that's why we have so many different training camps all over the United States that mimic different places in the world and environmental type situations. Even if you send a man over there, it's usually you give him a week or two to his body to adjust to the new environment before you send him out to do anything. And guys, it's the same way with the high tunnels. It's better to learn it while we can than to be thrown into a situation where we're in dire need of food and it's freezing temperatures and we don't know what we're doing. So that's probably the best explanation I can give you for that. And yes, the temperatures this morning are they're 52 degrees with a slight breeze. It's not much of a breeze, but it's just enough to, you feel it. It's not enough to really make the flag blow much. Well, it's moving back there a little bit, but it's not a hard breeze. Just enough to put it where it's a little bit of a chill with the high humidity, because I think humidity this morning is like 100%. The dew points is really high. But, you know, a little bit of, that's enough about that. Things are doing well, let me put it that way. And in the new year here, I mean, hey, it is going to be a year of challenges. Now, we're not going to say problems, because I don't like to use the word problems. I like to use the word challenge. It's a year of challenges. It's going to be a year of water. It's going to be a year of fire. And these things are spoken of in the Bible, by the way. Hosea, the book of Hosea is one of them, where it says it will rain on one city, and it won't rain on 2 or 3 other cities. In other words, one city will be deluged with water, and other cities will be burning up in drought. That's all in the book of Hosea in the Bible. Most everything we're experiencing is in the scriptures. So guys, we have to understand that what we're going into in 2023 is going to be a year of years. Let me put it that way. It's going to be a year of the heavens. We're going to see things in the heavens that we've not seen before. We've seen them before, but not to the magnitude that we've seen them. We're going, like I said, it's going to be a year of water. It's going to be a year of fire. We're going to have more fires this year than we've probably ever had. It's going to be a year of heat. It's going to be a year of cold. This year, 2023, is going to be a roller coaster. It's going to be a year of death. I hate to say that, but it's going to be a year of death. 2022, remember I told y'all, 2021 and 2022 is going to be a year of death. You're going to see a lot of it. And then we had, you know what, come in, and I can't use that word because we done had one of our videos pulled down because I spoke out of turn. And I've got to be really careful now about what I say because they're pulling my videos now. And so I want to talk today about community, because in order for us to survive what's coming in 2023, we're going to have to be more of a close-knit community. Because the whole idea of the system that's being implemented upon us now is to break down community. The last thing that we just went through broke down the church community, because it made everybody where they couldn't go to church, and they had to have a lockdown where they couldn't be in congregations, couldn't be together, and all this kind of stuff. And as a result, the churches have suffered, and most of them have never really come back to what they were. Now, some of them never stopped because they just didn't pay attention to the rules, and amen to that. But to the ones who did, they just never really come back. And people are scared to the hilt right now, which is not from God. Trust me on that one. But we've got to build community if we're going to make it. Now, understand, our mentality of community has changed. Okay? Let's go back. We call our place Deep South Homestead. Now, homestead is just a phrase now. The actual term homestead was way back. I think the last law that was taken off the book was in the early 80s, but the late 70s I think was when they abolished it totally, pretty much. But you could homestead 160 acres. Now, did that mean that you got it for free? No. The original Homestead Acts and laws, you had to for X number of years, you had to provide part of your living from that piece of property in order to be able to homestead it and get it from the government. So it wasn't like you got it for free. You had to make improvements on the land. You had to farm it for so many years. You had to make an income from it, whether you farmed it or whatever you did, timber or whatever. You had to make an income from it for so many years before you were actually given a clear title or a clear deed to it. And thus, to people today, quote unquote, because everybody's so politically correct, which irritates the hell out of me that people are that way, that words, oh, you're using that word improperly. Look, nobody today can homestead 160 acres because government just don't do it anymore. It's not permitted. Back when homesteading was the norm of life, our forefathers, not our grandparents, but our great-grandparents, who homesteaded, some of them did, some of them just lived in town or whatever, but those who actually had the balls to get out and homestead and actually carve something out of the land, community was a different word then. Because you see, you had one family every 160 acres. So community was a broad area. It was usually like a 10 or 15 mile area, 10, 15 miles this way, 10, 15 miles that way. That was classified as a community. Where I live at today in the south of in the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, I mean, we have Big Level community, which is, like I said, 10 or 15 miles in this direction, 10 or 15 miles in that direction. We've got Gum Pond community on the other side of town over here, which is the same way. We've got Magnolia community, Silver Run community, Barth community, all these different communities, and they encompass many miles. That is what community originally was. Now, because people can't have access to land like they used to, and if they did, people just won't do nothing with the land they got. I know people who have land and they just sit it grow up in weeds and bushes and they don't do anything with it. They don't try to put cows on it. They don't try to cut the timber on it. They don't try to manage timber. They don't try to put it in crops. They don't try to. It just sits and grows up. It's useless to everybody. Those kind of people really don't deserve. I mean, y'all will probably get hateful at me about this one, but those kind of people really just don't deserve land. I mean, if they're not going to use it to some benefit, whether they lease it out to a hunting club or do something with it, they really don't need it. It should be given to somebody who will utilize it. Now, with that being said, our communities have went from being this 10 to 15 mile area down to what we call now a neighborhood. Where I can see this house, and I can see that house, and that house, and this house, and this house, and we call that a community now. Technically, that's not really a community, okay? That's a neighborhood. But in our mind, in our way of thinking, we say we want to build community. Well, I want this person next to me to be I want us to all be able to get along and be able to have a like mind and which is great, don't get me wrong, but that's not community. Community doesn't really have to have borders. Where we live at in our town, small town of Wiggins here, there's people who come from Big Level, Gum Pond, Silver Run, Magnolia, Flint Creek, all these different communities. They all come into town here, and we all do business together and everything, and everybody's friends with everybody, and it's a big community of people. If I can go to town right now, and I could probably call on one of I don't know how many different people if I needed help with something from different places, and I call it they're in my community. How to explain this? We have a YouTube community, which means we can all get together here on YouTube. We can be from all over the country, but we can collectively come together as a community here on YouTube. And we can ask questions, and we can do videos, we can talk and chat back and forth, we can do all kinds of different things. And then over what I'm helping to work and become a part of and help to build up is a brand new platform called Freesteading. Freesteading is all about community. It's about bringing everybody in together from the whole country into one platform. And this platform is free. Instead of calling it homesteading, we call it freesteading, so that we can create these chat rooms or forums, I guess you should say. Each individual state, people can find people within their own state's own freesteading, so that you don't feel like you're the only person in your area. There may be somebody 10 miles down the road you don't even know about who's close to you who has the same mentality. And you say, oh, there's a person I can get to know who's like-minded, and therefore we don't feel so isolated. And that's been the whole basis of freesteading that we're this platform we're creating, and it's doing really good right now. And if you got questions, you can go over on Freesteading and you can look at the different community leaders, and you can go into their forums and you can ask questions and try to get answers for something that you have going on. I mean, there's several different community leaders right now that are doing just that. We're building community. In other words, we're building a community of like-minded people. So the word community takes on several different broad meanings, okay? Now, for people who say, well, I'd like to have a whole group of people right here around me and us all be like-minded so we could protect one another, we could do this, that's not community. That's called commune. That's a commune. Okay, there's a total difference there. A commune is usually ruled by one specific individual who has say over what goes on in that particular group of people. That's called a commune, which I don't advise getting involved in one of those, okay? We've seen those throughout history. People who got involved in them and they become more of an occult than anything else. And now there are some out there that are biblically based that I'm very familiar with, especially up in Arkansas and some different places around. And I'm personally not going to get involved in one of them. I mean, that's your own personal decision whether you do or not. But, you know, you got to get in our heads the difference between commune and community. They're two totally different things. Even though they both have a lot of similarities, they are different in many aspects. In a community, there are no chiefs. Everybody's an Indian. Okay? In a commune, you have a chief and everybody else is Indians. And if anything gets out of line, then they're disciplined. In a community, it's where we help one another. Nobody usurps authority over the other person. We all are equal and we all work together. Now, someone may have a skill that I don't have, and that's great. I may have skills they don't have. That's great. But we come together equally and we work together to come to a common goal, if that makes sense. But that's, you know, guys, that's where we're at. And I'm so afraid that today we're getting all this stuff confused. And everything that you see, Lord, this is probably going to get me in trouble, but everything that you see on YouTube is not real, okay? I'm privy of knowing many, many different YouTube places. And a lot of them are not real. I'm just being honest about it. And there's people who want to be in communities with those people. And there's lots of YouTube channels out there that literally all they're interested in is the fame and the glory of everything, you know, recognition and all this kinds of stuff. And then you have YouTube channels out here that's all about fear. If they can make everybody scared and they get lots of views for making everybody scared, then they're happy because it makes their financial side go up. And I don't want to be a part of that. You know, I would rather, Wanda and I have been talking really drastically about our direction for 2023. For what, 6-7 years now, I've been trying to teach everybody and trying to put out tidbits about things that I got information on that was going to happen. Well, pretty much all of them have started happening. So there's no need for me in 2023 to keep talking about this. It's not, there's no more time needed for trying to figure out what's going to happen, because what's going to happen is already happening and we can see it. If you have any sense about you at all, you can see what's going on around you. 2023 needs to be a year, even though we've talked about it's a year of water, flood, fire, stuff in the heavens and all this kind of stuff. We need to make it a positive thing. We need to make 2023 a year of solutions rather than a year of challenges. It needs to be solutions. And that's the direction this year that we want to take Deep South Homestead. I'm probably not going to do a lot of controversial talks. Now that my channel's being monitored and my videos are being pulled, if I get 3 strikes, we're just gone. Y'all have lost us, okay? And if you do, I mean, if it does happen, because I have a lot of videos, guys, I got 3,000 probably plus videos out there. And if they go back and start going through the archive and start pulling videos, they could very well find more than 3 or 4 of them that I could get the strikes and we'd be gone. And if that happens, then you need to go over to Wanda's channel, which is Crazy Daze. That's CRAZY DAZES. If they don't take that channel, we'll be over there. Or if that one happens to disappear, we have another channel called All God's Children that I haven't uploaded on in a long time, but it's there in case we need it. It's hidden in the background. You might want to go ahead and subscribe to those 2 channels just in case something happens and we're not here all of a sudden, and we've been pulled down. We'll meet you over there. You know, that's all I can say. And so I'm having 2023, if nothing happens, we're not going to be doing these type of controversial videos anymore, because everything we've talked about is pretty much happening. Now there is some things coming that we're very much aware of, and if you do, look, there's thousands of other channels out there that's telling you about all the new lockdowns that's coming, which I could sit here and go for the next hour on them. There's actually 2 of them coming. One has to do with climate, and the other one has to do with, like the last one, but it's got a different name. So we are not going to indulge in this anymore. We're going to predominantly stay with things that provide solutions to what we're facing. We're going to be doing more gardening videos, the high tunnel videos, because I believe high tunnels are going to be a way of the future based off of what's coming out of the atmosphere that's going to be getting on our plants and poisoning our soil and all this kind of stuff to the point where it's going to be very difficult to raise anything. Not to mention the fact of our solar system doing what it's doing, our plants are not getting the UV rays at the right level that they need to get them at, which is why in the high tunnels with a certain percentage shade cloth on it is actually working out pretty good, because it's blocking some of the particular different rays that plants don't need, and they're thriving under those shade cloths. We just got to change the shade cloth on one of the other ones there. But guys, we've got lots of things that we're going to be doing with Deep South this year. There will probably be some things I'm going to talk about in the future about a particular direction. We're not going to go in on Deep South Homestead, but we're going to be working and doing some other things in our life, Wanda and I are. So we're going to basically be focusing on things like cattle, the ponds, fish, permaculture, high tunnels, gardening, husbandry on animals. So we got our turkeys, our chickens, how to make them a very sustainable form of life, canning, different things just like preserving foods in particular different ways. Like we smoked the bacon here the other day. We didn't use any nitrites. We just used sugar and salt. We did it very economically. Trying to teach and show things like that. We're going to have things like we got the building of the smokehouse. We have the playlist for that. A lot of y'all have asked about the smokehouse. We have a playlist of the building of this smokehouse that I used. Just the off-grid cabin, lifestyle at the off-grid cabin, how we're functioning over here without electricity, you know, different ways of we're cooking, maybe different ways outside on open fires, grills, things like this, as alternative ways of being able to prepare our food. I just want to give you a heads up. We might do some videos, some more videos of living off the land, showing, you know, some different aspects of the land, fruit trees, our care of fruit trees, how we care for our grapevines and our muscadine vines, different things like this, guys. We're just trying to look for solutions to what's coming this year, because food will be a huge issue along with the environment. I mean, our climate's going to be, and it's not about climate control. It's about stuff that we have no control over. actually, by the time this video comes out, 3 to 4 days after this video comes out, probably not, maybe just a couple of days after it comes out, there's going to be a major event take place in our far solar system. Now, whether it'll be talked about or not, I don't know, because most people won't even know anything about it. Like, we've been having some severe explosions in our solar system here in the last few weeks that you probably haven't heard anything about. Some of you might have, but some of you might not have. They haven't had any massive issues with us here right now, but yet they're happening out there, and they will be affecting us in the future, because things that happen in space don't necessarily happen here at Earth immediately. It takes time for stuff to travel and stuff to happen. But yeah, we're going to have some issues that's going to happen here in going to start here in this week. And we probably will be a delayed reaction for us here on the Earth. You can, if you're sharp enough at using the internet, you'll be able to find out what I'm talking about. I'm not going to go into any details because we're not sure if this video I had pulled actually had anything to do with certain things. They said it was a one particular thing, and I read it over on Patreon to our patrons, but I'm not sure that that's the exact reason they pulled it. I think it had something to do with some other things I talked about in the video they pulled. Because there's other videos out there that talked about exactly the same thing that I talked about, and they didn't pull it. So I'm thinking it probably had something to do with something other that they didn't mention because they didn't want me to be, enlightened on why they really pulled it. So that's why I'm being kind of cautious right now. But just be aware, there's things in the heavens and the solar systems we're going to be seeing here real quick. So guys, back to the community thing. All of this ties into a community. Just be aware of what a real community was originally set out to be. Look around where you live at, and look at what's called communities in your area, and look at how large they are. It wasn't about the person living right next door to you being called community. That's a neighbor. Community included neighbors, but neighbors were further apart, and they weren't right under each other's noses. There's a scripture. Where is it at in the Bible? I can't remember the exact passage right now. Woe unto those that join house unto house, and lay field unto field, that there be found no place on the earth that they may be alone. Now stop and think about that. Woe unto those that join house unto house. That means neighborhoods, like house unto house unto house. Field unto field, where I have fields. I can see my neighbor's house there. I have a field right here. I can see my neighbor's house right there. Woe unto those people that do this, that they be found no place on the earth that they may be alone. We've created our own demise by... That's why the Homesteading Act was so great, because people 160 acres apart, you couldn't see your neighbor. He was more than a half a mile away. And what he did didn't affect you. He wasn't over there looking down. He wasn't looking across the fence at you or looking across the field like, what's he doing over there? And what's going on over there, you know? They weren't keeping an eye on you. And you didn't do the same with them. You just knew they were your neighbors. And the fact, everything has changed. Not for the better, but for the worse. Now, we don't even know who our next door neighbor who lives 20 feet from us, we don't even know who they are. We don't know who the person across the field who built that house over there, we don't know who those people are. You know what I'm saying? That's what has become the demise of our society. We have broken God's rules. And we now expect, everybody wants to do their own thing. All the people from the city think, if I move out to the country, I can just do my own thing. Well, no, you cannot. if it interferes, if you move out into a community, into a neighborhood, and you're next door to another person, you can't just make all the noise you want to make. That person has been living in peace and harmony, and you cleared a piece of property beside him and put a house in, and you want to make all the noise in the world because that's the way you lived in town, and you're totally oblivious to noise in the town. And when you move out to the country, you're like, well, you kids, go ahead. Y'all make all the noise out there, jumping up and down, screaming and hollering, and everybody's running loud vehicles all over the place, and music's blaring wide open, and people's moving out into the country and putting in $20,000 swimming pools and stuff like that, and here's all this racket with radios going on, and all the country people are sitting there going, God, what has happened? And I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, and I know it. And I'm sorry, guys. It's my opinion, and I have that right to express it. And if you want to live that way, I'm perfectly fine with you. Just don't live that way by me. It's just, I'm trying to explain to you why country people, when people move out into the country, and they create situations like this, and then all of a sudden there's anarchy in a neighborhood, and they can't figure out why everybody can't get along. And did you ever stop to realize maybe you messed up the serenity that they had? Guys, we must take one another's thoughts and feelings into our own way of thinking. In other words, say, get to know an area before you move into it, and say, what kind of people live there? Now, maybe it's just the opposite. Maybe you're a really quiet person and you don't like a lot of noise, and you move into a neighborhood and everybody there makes tons of noise, and you go, oh my gosh, what have I done? Oh my word. And well, you just didn't do your research, and Wanda and I are the same way here. We like peace and quiet. Now, I don't mind farm noises. I don't mind hearing cows hollering. I don't mind hearing chickens and roosters and guineas and ducks and turkeys, and I don't mind hearing that kind of stuff. But a barking dog will drive me up the wall, because that's dogs are not supposed to just bark continually. If you've got a dog that does that, something's wrong. And now, if he's herding cattle, or if he's a dog that's out treeing squirrels and you're hunting, that's one thing. But if he's just on a chain out in the yard out there and he's barking continually, day in and day out, then, certain people don't want to listen to that. And that's what happens, the reason communities and neighborhoods get all mixed up. I was visiting with a gentleman here just the other day, and while we were sitting there visiting, and it wasn't right next to him, but right down the road from him there, at a distance, you hear this whoop, 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 whoop. I told him, I said, wow, I said, you got a neighbor that's got a barking dog down there. He goes, yeah, they just got that thing. He said, about to drive me up the wall, and I told him, I said, well, we have no control over those type of situations. And he goes, I know. He said, but it used to be so quiet here. He says, and now we have to listen to that constantly. And then years ago, we had a big place about 2 miles from me that's a big giant sand pit, and they had opened it up for motocross stuff and four-wheelers and all that kind of stuff. And sitting in my house, they did it on Saturdays and Sundays is when they opened it up. Sitting inside my house, I couldn't even hear my wife saying something to me because the noise from 2 miles away was so loud because of the exhaust systems on these things. And it took several years, but finally some very influential people got all that shut down. You have to take people's feelings into consideration when you do things. That's why communities today are not functioning like they need to, because everybody wants to just do their own thing. And guys, I don't know how to say it and it come across right. I'm not very good with words in that way. I'm usually a very blunt person, and you either like me or you hate me usually, and I apologize for that. But I'm not good at choosing. I'm not much of a diplomat. Let me put it that way. When it comes to choosing the right words to convey a message across that doesn't hurt someone's feelings. But we get bombarded with these questions here on YouTube all the time. I just moved into a community, and oh my word, my neighbors are horrible. What do I do, Danny? And I'm like, don't ask me. I didn't tell you to move there. You know, I mean, you should have done your homework ahead of time. I don't know what to tell you. And then you may live in a place, and then other people move in around you because all the land around you sold, and now no longer do you live in a quiet little place, but you live in a mad metropolis around you. I don't know what to tell you other than maybe you just need to move. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't do any good today to talk to people. And I'm going to say something else here. And this might help to clarify some things. Because of the magnetosphere of the earth right now, when certain things happen in the solar system that causes our magnetosphere to act up, our bodies are much like the earth is. The earth works off of magnetic fields. Our bodies work off of magnetic fields. Our brain works off of magnetic fields. And when the magnetic fields are being distorted by things going on in the solar systems, it messes with a lot of people's minds. And people, you're going to see this in 2023. You're going to see a lot more angry people than you've ever seen before. And it's not anything it's not their fault. It's based off of things going on in the solar system with the magnetic fields affecting the person's way of thinking. A person who normally you could sit down and reason with will go all to pieces on you. If the magnetic fields in the earth are being screwed up at that time, it will mess with their minds. People who are naturally hot-headed anyway and have issues in those areas are going to be worse than they normally were. So just a heads up on that. If you start running into people and you're trying to, people you can normally sit down and have a good conversation with, you're having a conversation with them and all of a sudden they jump up and they're all like screaming and hollering and carrying on. Guys, this happens when these cycles come through with people. You know, just go back and study history. You will see it in history where these types of mental things happen with people when certain solar cycles come through. So be aware of that. I thought I'd throw that in right here at the end. But anyway, guys, my cows are back here at the hay. They're wanting to get around to the front right here. I hear them. So I need to go where I can go take care of them. They're my babies, you know. I got to make sure they're well taken care of. And I hope y'all have a blessed new year. I just hope and pray that 2023 will be a year that you can come up with solutions rather than challenges, guys. Thank you again from Deep South Homestead.